because Norma and I have a ton of content to share with you. We have an ambitious agenda because we want to give you as much as we can to help you really make momentum this summer in what is typically a really quiet hiring time. And so, for those of you just joining us, pop in the chat where you're joining us from and what where you're at in your search. Just getting started, digging through, interview process, things like that, getting ready for an offer, all of that. And while we do that, for those of you that don't know me, I do see a lot of new faces on this call. I am Deborah Boggs. I am a fellow chief sister, and I am CEO of DNS Executive Career Management. And we are a career management firm that helps senior leaders prepare for and navigate their high-level job search and their search for board seats. So we are not a search firm. We don't do placements, but we are like the home stagers to make a luxury property look expensive before it goes on the market, shorten time on the market, increase final offers, things like that. And what that means is we typically work with candidates through the, developing your assets, your resume, LinkedIn profile, certainly to compete at a high level. We also then work with candidates on their search strategy, interview prep, and compensation negotiation to maximize that final offer. So that's a little bit about who we are, what we do. And I'd like to introduce Norma Davila on our team because she'll be co-hosting with me today. And you all will learn so much from Norma. I'm really excited that she's here with us for this conversation. And let me just pull up her bio. I apologize.
Oh, it's okay. You know what you need to share with the group. You don't have to read a bio if you don't want to.
I know, but I just feel like Norma brings so much to the table that I don't want to leave anything out. So she is our director of coaching, and she is also an executive career strategist, a career coach for senior leaders in transition, and a published author. She holds a PhD in developmental psychology from the University of Chicago, a bachelor's degree from Yale, and many certifications spanning career transition, interview coaching, resume writing, things like that. She now leads our coaching team, supporting senior leaders through their job search and board searches globally, and she's bilingual in English and Spanish. So a little bit about what she brings to the table. So why are we doing this conversation today? We talk to a ton of candidates who get frustrated during the summer because hiring slows down. And this is true. What we see is hiring does slow down. And in this market, everything slows down, right? Everything is moving really, really slowly. We're seeing job search processes take 8 to 12 months for senior leaders. We're seeing specific processes for individual opportunities take up to 5 months and 7 or more rounds of interviews, right? So things are really lengthening out. But what happens is if you take the summer off because there's not a lot of hiring going on, then you're not going to be in process to be considered for the role that we know we're going to close in September. There's always a hiring surge in September. What we're seeing right now is that the hiring surge is going to be even more pronounced this year because it was such a slow year for hiring in general. And so we want to make sure you're first in line for those opportunities. And the other thing is people are still hiring this year. We have 2 clients who started their jobs yesterday. There's senior leadership roles. One of Norma's clients got 2 offers last week, 2, not just 1. So things are happening, things are moving, but we have to search smarter, not harder. And we want to build momentum. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to throw a ton of information at you, but it'll really help you prepare for really going about your search thoughtfully and not just spinning your wheels in activity or saying, throwing up your hands and saying, never mind, I'm gonna wait out and start back in the fall. But we also know that this is really hard. As women, summer is hard. Your kids may be home from school. I know mine are. That's so rough. My husband's a full-time stay-at-home dad, and it's still really tough when the kids are home. There's constant, vacations. People are visiting from out of town. There's things going on. So it's hard to keep momentum. So I know Norma and I are going to share some bite-sized ways that you can be driving momentum daily for your search in ways that'll just keep things rolling forward for you so that you don't stagnate or stall. So a couple of assumptions for this call, we take our clients through what we call the executive edge method, and that's really the 7 steps that are necessary for an executive job search to be successful. And that really starts with your unique value, your resume, your LinkedIn profile. But this conversation, we're going to focus on the job search strategy. So we have a YouTube channel with a ton of videos and things on resume, LinkedIn profile, your unique value proposition. We can also help you with those things. But we're assuming in this conversation we're starting at strategy. And real quick call out to Carmen Poth on our team is on this call as well. She can pop in our YouTube chat or our YouTube link in the chat as well if you want to see any of those past videos. But if people want to learn what it's like to work with us, learn more about our services, the first step is typically to talk to Carmen. So that's why she's on this call. So we're assuming the job search strategy. And the reason we start there is because this is where we see a lot of executive job seekers break down. This is where the process typically breaks down. And the reason is that the executive job search is different and the way you go to market is different and the way you go about your job search is completely different. And if we don't change the way we're going about our process, then we're going to keep getting the same results we're getting right now, which is typically, constant rejections to online applications, or things go forever, or you're reaching out to recruiters and they're not getting back, or they say they don't have anything for you, or you have a great call and you don't hear back from them. These things can happen. And that's where Norma and I really want to talk about different ways to keep the ball rolling, get in the right conversations, things like that. So I'm going to pause there, give Norma the ability to say hello because I didn't do that. And if you have any specific questions for us, pop them in the chat as we go through.
Great. Well, thank you, Deborah, for having me, and thank you all for joining us this morning. Earlier, I mentioned sort of ironically, I live in the tropics, which is where most of the storms and all these other weird things happen. And now they're happening in Maine. So anyway, we'll take care of it as best as we can. And
it's typically Norma who tells us I may lose power, but today is the opposite.
Yeah, anything can happen, but we're ready for it, just like you're getting ready to deal with your job search at whichever stage you are. Because it's really about consistency, about doing everything all the time without getting overwhelmed.
Right.
And celebrating your wins along the way. So that's why Deborah and I could talk about this for the entire day. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to chop it into manageable pieces.
Absolutely. And we'll save some time for Q&A at the end as well. So we're going to talk about the three go-to-market channels that are appropriate at the executive level. If you're not going to be looking for opportunities online, then where do you find them, right? And so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to cover bite-sized ways to keep your search moving. And finally, how to beat frustration, how to kind of keep your momentum up through a long, tough search that can often feel lonely. And so we're going to talk about that as well. So first, let's talk about these channels, right? Most people that we work with have built amazing careers through their network, getting promoted, getting recruited, and they've never had to take themselves to market at this level. And so this feels foreign. You've never had to do it, and most often, or you haven't had to do it in a long time, or you've done it in a completely different market. So we have clients that say my search in 2022 is not my search in 2025. They are different animals. And so knowing the channels that make sense for a job search, assuming you have your standout resume, your optimized LinkedIn profile, your focus for the search, which is a whole separate conversation. When it comes to, okay, you're going to go about your search, how are you going to be doing that? And what really makes sense is looking at it from like a go-to-market strategy. And there's three go-to-market channels that make sense that are more effective for senior leaders. And the first is building and activating your network. The second is working with recruiters, if recruiters make sense for you as a channel, because everyone's search is going to be a little bit different. And then finally, it's going to be focusing on companies and not opportunities. And so we're going to dig into what each of those mean and who they're right for. Because when we work with a candidate who's starting a search, what Norma typically does is work through what combination of those three channels makes sense for their search, because it's different for everyone. So we're going to talk about all three, and that way you can all determine for yourselves which channels make sense for you. So we're going to hop in and start with networking, and Norma's going to take the stage.
Okay. I still can't believe how many clients tell me that they've been applying for hundreds of jobs and not getting anything because all they do is apply online, even at the senior levels. And the moment they're mentioned, yeah, I mean, it's every day. It's unreal. And of course, the weight of rejection keeps draining them and draining them and draining
Mhm.
them and getting them to lose that energy and that enthusiasm that they need to have for those interviews and to reach out to people to continue their process. And the minute I mention networking, I get the weirdest looks, even from people who do it without even knowing that they've been doing it. Networking. I have to reach out to people I don't know.
I
I have to
have to
ask
ask for
people.
something.
Yeah,
It's
I
impossible
have to
for
ask.
us to, yeah.
Yeah, I have to ask for something. It's not going to be delivered in my front door. No, it's not. So let's get rid of the word networking if that's what scares them, which is usually what I do, and start looking at it as relationship building. I'm an introvert. I build relationships. The
Mhm.
thought of going to an event with 200 people and floating around like a butterfly, giving business cards or whatever variation there may be, freaks the living daylights out of me.
Right.
So Deborah knows this because she's seen me. And I'm much better at individual interactions, deeper conversations, meaningful connections. And that's what I suggest to my clients. That's where the
Mhm.
bite-sized idea came in. And that's where my post, shameless plug from yesterday, was about prepare to meet with people just like you do when you go to an event where there's going to be a lot of food. I eat beforehand. That translates to doing your research beforehand. That translates also to finding out who's going to be there. Of the 20 people who are going to be attending, who are my top 3 targets, I need to meet and I need to have a meaningful conversation. And just like I'm not going to plop everything on my plate, my mother would kill me. I'm not going to try to talk to 200 people on an event and not even remember anybody's name. The idea is to know who you want to meet, have those meaningful conversations, and not leave it at that.
Mhm.
Follow up. And Deborah is great at doing that and about setting virtual coffees as a way to connect and continue the conversation. Deborah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Norma touched on it, but you really have to have a clear focus of who you need to know, what doors you need to have opened, because a really hyper focused search is what'll perform best in the market, not only in your documents, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, things like that, but also in the search strategy. Because otherwise, what's going to happen is that you're trying to network with everyone on the planet, and that's really hard. That's scattered, right? And
It's
you don't
not
have
going to
time for
happen.
that. But we need to be thinking about what are the rooms we need to be in, virtually or live, and who are the people we need to be talking to, and what do those conversations look like. And one of the easy ways I like to do that is to attend virtual events like this where I know my target audience is going to be, or live events, either way. But then reaching out to the event attendees that I want to meet and say, hey, I saw we were both at the XYZ event. I'd love to meet and chat about your work, and give them a link to your calendar, right? Make it really easy for them. You'll be surprised at how many people take you up on that. It's an easy way to not have to go to those formal networking events where everyone's handing out their business card, right? No one wants to do that. That's not fun for anyone. But what we can do is start having meaningful conversations and then ending every conversation with, who else should I know? Right? Because every door can open another door. And what we know from the data that I won't bore you with is that most opportunities come from your second and third degree connections, not from the people that know you the best. So when we start with the people that know us the best, this is a great way to start, but then we need to start networking outside that, right? And a lot of you, and this happens really often with our clients, is that you've built this amazing career and you have a really great network internally or within your industry. But if you're looking to look outside or change industries, that's where we don't have as strong of networks. But that's okay because that's where we can start reaching out to people um, more strategically, because I also see, I talk to job seekers that say, well, I'm having 5 virtual coffees a day and I'm not getting any doors opened. Are you networking with the right people? Are you reaching the decision makers that can actually make something happen for you or open the doors for you that you need? And that's where we need to start doing it with intention.
That's what I was going after, and that's a perfect transition for one of our next points, because it's doing your research, it's knowing who you're going to be meeting with and why you want to meet with them. Granted, you may want to have wonderful conversations, but that's not going to
Right.
be the only thing you want. and also in terms of how to approach them. It's
Right.
not going up to people and saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. Can you help me get something? Ooh,
Right.
nobody, I mean, people are going to start running away from you. What you want to be clear, as Deborah was saying, is not only what you want to do, but let's take a step back. What do
Right.
you bring to the table that could somebody be interested in
Yeah. What
beyond
is your unique
saying,
value?
yes, your unique value, and that has to be crafted and it has to come out naturally. It's
Mhm.
not to memorize it. It's not to give the speech you did when you were in eighth grade.
Right.
It's actually being able to articulate what you do and who you do it for.
Right. And
Then
this is such a good point, and I don't mean to cut you off, but when we think about our unique
it's a
value at the
conversation.
executive level, it's different because you're competing against the very best in your industry. So your unique value is not that you're a seasoned leader with 20 years of
Oh,
experience in marketing or whatever your industry is. That's not enough. That is table stakes. We need to talk about how you are uniquely equipped to solve the biggest challenges in the industry. And that's something that, that unique value piece is so incredibly important that for this call, anyone who's on this call, if you choose to work with us and engage with us for a package, we're going to offer that unique value session for free as an add-on into the package because it's so incredibly important to say, here's what you do and how you deliver it differently and who you deliver it for. And that weaves into your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your job search strategies, your interviews, all of these pieces, right? And finally culminates into getting a maximum final offer. So, we have videos in our YouTube channel on the unique value as well, but just be thinking about that.
yeah, it has to become part of who you are because it has to be how you present yourself. So going back to being self-confident, being comfortable, talking about the value you bring will click with the right person. And they may
Mhm.
go, oh, there may be something here. Maybe somebody's neighbor's cousin, relative, third level, whatever you want to make it out of one of those weird networks we all have, may have interest in getting to know you and open other doors. But if you approach people by just by straight, I need something, they're going to freak out and start squirming. Talk about the value. Then maybe, depending on how interested they are, that you can start talking about where you are in your career and how you're exploring other options.
Right. And you bring up there's a question in the chat, and Suzanne, this is a really excellent question. If it's a coffee chat and you want to learn about the company and not a role, why do I need to tell the person I'm speaking with my unique value? You may not need to. What we do need to know is in thinking about all of these conversations, making it very approachable for a person to help you in any situation. So, like Norma said, where we don't want to lead with "I'm looking for a job," we also want to make it really easy for people to open doors for us. And what I see when people reach out to me on LinkedIn, often people think we're recruiters. We are not recruiters. That's not what we do. But people think that all day, every day. They do with Carmen too on the call, and what they send me is one of two things. It's either I'm looking for a new role. Please look at my resume and tell me if you have any opportunities that would fit my background. No one's going to do that. Or they send me way too many details, right? I'm looking for this with my 25 years of experience, and here's all the things I've ever done. And I keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and it's too much, right? So I think, Suzanne, what we're looking for is having a naturally being able to weave in our value and what we're looking for in a conversation because it's not a speech, it's not an elevator pitch, it's not a 90-second soliloquy, right? It's more about having a conversation with someone. You're asking about them, they're asking about you, you're saying, hey, I'm in transition, looking for an XYZ type of role where I can really leverage my unique value here, right? It's a sentence. It's not a whole conversation because that is too much. And honestly, if you're hoping to have doors opened, maybe that's not the right person to tell that whole story to, and that's fine too. Maybe it's a follow-up conversation. Maybe you're building the relationship. You don't need to lead with your value if that's not really a natural place for the conversation to go.
Yeah, a lot of this is going to be trial and error, so to speak. You're testing the waters, you're testing how people respond. I'll just give you an example of a safe place where I've actually tested part of mine. If I tell people I'm an executive career management coach in the waiting room of a doctor's office, where I've been quite a bit recently, people look at me like, what? But if I tell people I help executives get prepared for their next opportunities by doing XYZ, their eyes light up and they start asking questions about what my work is and how I can connect. And maybe they've referred me somebody, or maybe just keep a conversation going. It's a place to practice, but I've really seen the difference even at that basic level. And in the case we're talking about, the stakes are much higher. So it's got to be natural. And recruiters is something that Deborah mentioned. Recruiters need to be part of your network, but right now they're not going to be the core of your networking.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about recruiters, because this is something that we see executives want to lean on. Should I work with a recruiter? Should I work with a headhunter? And that's not necessarily how they work. So can you level set with all of us about how recruiters work and who makes sense to network with recruiters?
Okay, perfect. Recruiters work for whoever hires them to fill a role, and they're going to look for that square peg that fits in the square hole and move on to the next one.
Right.
They don't work for you. So if you are somebody who's career pivoting or doing something different, and your background is maybe too broad or you haven't focused it enough, recruiters are not necessarily your best choice. You want to include them on your network, You want to reach out to the ones you've worked with before. But right now, their work is getting more difficult because of the market conditions. So they may take longer to get back to you, and those are the ones who want to know what your value is straight off the bat, as Deborah discovered also during a LinkedIn Live she had with a recruiter.
Yes, we have on our YouTube channel some interviews with recruiters of what they're looking for and how to reach out to them, because they're seeing what we're seeing in the market right now too. Their work is light right the second too, and the companies they're working with are getting more and more selective. And hear me when I say, not just with working with recruiters, but with all of you, in your search, you have to get hyper focused, because no one is hiring generalists right now. They're not hiring Jills of all trades, right? They're hiring someone who can specifically solve the challenges they're facing. And it doesn't mean that if you're a generalist, you won't get hired, but it means we need to change the narrative of how you're showing up in the market so that people can understand where you fit into their organization. And that's especially true of recruiters. And so if you're looking for an apples to apples role in the same industry and the same title you had, then recruiters can make a really great um, connection for you. And you do want to reach out, connect with them, tell them your unique value, what you're looking for, make it short and easy, and start building a relationship with as many recruiters as you can, not just one, because again, their job is not to shop you around to opportunities. And I will say there are a couple of companies that say they do that. I don't know of any that are reputable. So if someone asks you to pay them to then shop you around to companies like a recruiter would, like a reverse recruiter or a headhunter, that's typically not a good choice. But what they're doing is being hired to fill those square pegs with square holes with the exact list of requirements that the company has provided them. And they can't really go outside that. They can't go outside the box. So what happens is if someone's looking for a career change, or they're looking for a different industry, or maybe you've been out of work for a while, and you reach out to recruiters thinking that's going to be your best bet, and then you get rejection after rejection after rejection. And it's not you, it's the channel. That job search channel doesn't make sense for you right now in this moment, in which case we need to think about it differently.
And also we can think about our approach to the role we're looking for differently, because it could be that your next job is what gets you to your next after next job. You don't have to be doing everything you want to do all at once. You can look at it as a long-term project where you do things differently and you start building for whatever you want to do next. Make it more specific, stay in this area. This is the market. This is the connections I'm making. These are the results I'm getting.
Right.
And to close the point of recruiters before we get into the company searches, and this has happened to me several times, if I get a call from a recruiter and I'm not interested in whatever it is they're offering me, I refer someone who might be. Yeah. Of course, I check to make sure that I can give personal information, all that stuff, meeting me, but I want to make sure that they see me as a resource. Right. They see me as a reliable source of information and as a business partner in the process. And maybe they'll get back to me when they find something that suits me better. Right. So it's
starting to build those relationships.
It's relationships. It's one component. Don't rely only on recruiters just because that's probably what you've done before all the time. So,
Right.
so
And
Deborah, we know. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
oh, there's just a quick question in the chat. Gita asked, "What are your thoughts about keeping
Oh,
in touch with hiring managers and how to do that effectively?" Absolutely. There's all sorts of reasons why you may not get an offer, right? If you go through the process, even if it's a 7+ interview process, there's all sorts of reasons why you may not get an offer. But having that relationship with that hiring manager is incredibly important because they may move into a different role, move to another company, have more influence in a different area. There may have been an internal candidate or internal politics or some other reason why you didn't get that offer. It doesn't mean you weren't their first choice or their really close second choice. And so keeping those relationships open because they already know your value. They already, know all about you. They've had great interactions with you. And at this point, they can open other doors. I know I've gotten offers from hiring managers that didn't hire me the first time because of all sorts of whatever that reached out when they moved into a new role and said, can you join my team for this? So having those relationships makes sense. And going back to those virtual coffees, that's actually how Norma and I met. We met on an industry webinar.
mm-hmm.
She reached out to me and said, "Love to learn about your work. Let's meet on a virtual coffee." I didn't have an opening at that point, but she reached out to build a relationship, and that's where we actually met. And that's been years ago now. But these are the easy ways that we can start reaching out to hiring managers. That again, this is why we're starting now and not waiting till the fall because these seeds take a while to sprout, right? And so the more irons we have in the fire, the better.
And if their first choice doesn't work, they may call you as their second choice because they already know you and they don't have to go through the whole hassle of interviewing you again. I've seen that happen after those 3 months. Oh, by the way, this didn't work out. Would you still be interested in? Okay, there you go. You had a relationship. If you didn't leave doors open, then probably somebody else would get that call. We have another call, a question here. Wouldn't generalist people with range be needed for specific roles, for example, in emerging markets with ambiguity or in startups? That will
So
depend
yes,
on
but
how
you
you
have to make
define.
it very specific. Then that is your value is being able to lead through ambiguity and lead through emerging markets. And that is your specificity then is that you help emerging markets lead through ambiguity by doing XYZ. Um,
And there goes your
but what we
specificity.
more often see is people come to the table and say, well, I can help any company with anything because I've led operations in this industry and that industry and this industry. No one cares. You have to get specific. So in your case, that is specific, and that's okay.
It's all back
So
to research.
yeah, let's talk about the third channel then. So we talked
Yes.
about networking, we talked about recruiters and who that works for and who that doesn't. And then finally, the third is focusing on companies and not opportunities. And this is where if you're really specific about what kind of role you're looking for, and that really starts with what industry, what size, what ownership structure, right? Because a PE owned firm is going to have very different needs and concerns and challenges than a privately owned company or a public company, right? Size, location, or where it's based, all of these things, go to market strategy, go to market method, business model, size of team, all of these things. If you can get really specific, then you can also focus on the right companies. And especially if you're someone who works in startups for emerging markets, or if you want to work for, a really specific kind of company, or you're in a really specific area and you can't move and you need to work, like say we have a client right now who lives in Reno and he really has to stay in Reno. And so what are the options, right? And so you want to think about companies and not opportunities. Because ideally, what would happen is if Kirsten was able to reach out to the right company and they meet her first and say, "Wow, Kirsten is amazing. How do we get her on our team?" versus her applying to an online application that says, "Okay," or even going through a recruiter and say, "Okay, how does Kirsten stack up in the very prescriptive list of requirements we've already got against these other candidates that have apples to apples experience with our biggest competitor?" That's what we don't want, right? We want to come in the back door and have meaningful conversations with people that can really move things for us. And so when we think about thinking about companies, there's some really easy ways to do this now. I mean, especially with AI, it makes it much easier. I like to use Crunchbase data. Is even easier than just kind of chatting with ChatGPT because Crunchbase data is inexpensive. There is a cost. There's a free version and there's a paid version. Um, but if you're going through a really specific search, it's not a huge amount of money. But what you want to think about is you can build lists of companies based on location, ownership structure, you know, the type of product, obviously industry, get really specific, like in SaaS, getting really specific around health tech versus, MarTech versus all these other things. But the other thing you can do is focus on revenue or even latest funding round. So if you work for startups, you can see who's likely to hire right now, or whether they are showing signals of getting ready to have an event, have a merger, get acquired, all of these things. And then if you find companies you like, you can also look for companies similar to that with a similar profile. But what I love about Crunchbase, and then you can also take this into ChatGPT, is then taking a step further and saying, okay, if this is the company I want to know, then who are the people at the company I need to know? And then building lists of the specific people to start reaching out and having conversations, or what events are they at? What organizations are they a part of? What rooms do you need to be? Um, what rooms do you need to be in to start making these connections? And that's a really great question. Is Crunchbase available through any libraries? I have no idea, but that is a really excellent question.
Yeah. Yeah, and going back to the point of going to where people are, you need to find out where the people you need to meet are going to be besides all these holiday events that we're talking about. And make
Right.
sure that when you attend those 10, 15,000 people conferences, you're ready to meet them and make those connections and look for people and be intentional because
Yes.
networking is about, and connecting with people is about being focused, getting to where you want, getting to be able to, okay, you may have to go through a system, you may have to send your resume through because the compliance issues, but you want to make sure that you get to the decision makers before the system.
Right. And around, when we talk, this is kind of back to networking, but if you're going to go to an event or you're going to go, this usually works with live events. I like to look at the attendee list ahead of time and then send connection requests to the people I want to meet before the event and say, I see we're both attending the XYZ event. I can't wait to meet you there. I'd love to connect. Then when they connect, send them another message, thanks so much for connecting. Can't wait to see you next week, whatever it is. Because so few people do that. When you get into the room and you say, hi, I'm blah, 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 they will often remember you either by face or by name. Make sure your photo looks like you and that it's easily recognized, because then you immediately have a connection. They already know a little bit about you. You're a safer connection and they're willing to chat. And a lot of times I hear things like, oh, thanks so much for connecting with me. It was, I was excited to meet you, or whatever it is, but it warms it up before you meet them in person.
Things like the chat we have here are a great tool,
Yes.
the back channels of conferences and virtual events. You can start interacting with each other. You can start asking questions. You can start connecting and take the conversation further after the event ends. And it's
Right.
safe and comfortable.
So do we see, these are the three channels. We could dig really deeply into all three of them and really dig deep, but we wanted to do an overview to give you guys all some nuggets to think about approaching your search differently before we hop into some of these bite-sized things you can be doing through your search, which Norma's going to tackle in a moment. Do we feel like this can apply to your search? Is everybody with me? If you want to pop in the chat.
I think some people want
And
to see slides and they want to see you demo. Okay, there's a yes from Constance. Yes from Leela, sorry.
with you. Thank you.
Suzanne,
Are you sharing slides?
yes.
I am not sharing slides, but this is more of a conversation, but we do have some tools that may be helpful. One of them is, before we launch into these bite-sized pieces, I know at the beginning of the call, we talked about it. Everyone's in a little bit of different place in your search, or you're just starting your search. We have created an executive job search diagnostic that goes through the 7 steps in our executive edge method around, your unique value, your resume, your LinkedIn, your job search strategy, and on, around where the process for you is working and where it may be breaking down. And that way you can kind of see if you're not getting the traction, or if you're just getting started and you're not sure if you're ready, it may be helpful. And so I'm going to pop this in the chat. It's a free download, but it may help you see the areas where where your search, could use a level up. And then, um, also I added, let's see,
Yeah,
there we go.
you
And then
added
also for anyone
items.
who wants to learn more about what it's like working with us, how we help you navigate the job search. We have several clients on the call, so good to see you all. And you can vouch
Yeah.
for this too separately. But I will add a link to meet with Carmen on our team. And again, she's not on camera right this second, which is fine. But
Yeah.
she's here, and those calls are really about where are you at in your search, what's working, what's not, how we can help you gain more traction, or even what the process looks like to help you launch that search. So I'm gonna pop her link in the chat. Let's talk about what we can do over the summer to make this to keep momentum moving, but without taking over our lives, especially if we have kids and events and holidays and vacations and all the things.
I'm doing something here, getting my contact information in. Okay. What can we do? One of the things that we want to do is, well, before we do get into what we can do, Deborah, do you want to share something about Crunchbase? Something else? I don't know
We
if
do
you
have
want a
thank you,
video
forgot
or a
about that.
demo.
We have a video on our YouTube channel on how to use Crunchbase to find companies. So I do have like a 6-minute tutorial. Thank you, Norma. Totally forgot. That is free on our YouTube channel if you really want to see how you could make that work for you. And so feel free to check that out. Um, and maybe in a minute, Carmen can find that and pop that in the chat since I didn't tell her we were going to do that. Thanks,
Well,
Carmen.
also, Crunchbase will be useful to give you information on how to get more, well, industry conversations. If you feel uncomfortable talking about the weather and about the snacks, you can approach people and tell them, I've been reading about this, about your company. What do you think about that? And whatever, to get the conversation at a different level, and you will be perceived differently too. So that's one thing you can do. Spend more time doing research. In terms of what to do to stay motivated, which I think is what Deborah was after. You get all these rejections, or you get all this work, or you you feel like you've spent the whole week on your computer and you haven't even been outside. Mm-hmm. Take your break and celebrate that you've spent all that time. Do something nice for yourself. If it means just sitting out in the sun for 15 minutes because you haven't seen the light of day for a week, right. Do it. Take a walk. Walk your dog. See your neighbor. Small gestures actually make a big difference in how we feel, because again, consistency is what we want. Get that manicure. Spoil yourself. Get a haircut. Do something to feel good about yourself as you're moving along. And it doesn't have to be pricey if you're concerned about cost. We all are at some point. Have that favorite cup of tea. Get something out of your brag jar, which is where you keep the little strips of paper of things people have said about you that say how wonderful you are and how wonderful something else was. You've done it before. You can do this. You've overcome other situations. You can do this. But most importantly, like we've said before, break everything into smaller, manageable chunks. When somebody tells me they're going to make 200 contacts in a week, I freak out. That's not doable.
That's not manageable.
It's a path to frustration.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. But if somebody tells me I want to make 10 contacts, I want to reach out to these many people, I want to attend these events this week, that seems manageable. You don't want to be drained, and you want to be
meaningful contacts is so much more important than trying to fit 50 random virtual coffees in a week, right? It's more about, like we said at the beginning of the call, it's about working smarter, not harder, and doing it with intention. And so Sarah says, are you saying don't bother applying to jobs online at all? I am. I want you all to stop applying online. And here's why. There are a million reasons why you may not get selected for an online application that have nothing to do with you or your ability. And then what happens is rejection after rejection, it's a hit to the ego, and a healthy sense of ego is really important for senior level roles. And most roles are not filled through online applications. And when they are, that's typically a red flag to me, saying that they either have a candidate chosen internally or even someone externally, and they just are going through the motions, or they're super cheap and they don't want to do it best practice by working with a recruiter. Or there's all sorts of other reasons why a job stalls in the middle. And so I'm not saying apply online. What I am saying though, and a fellow chief sister reached out to me this week and said, "Hey, I saw a job come up online. It's my ideal opportunity. I'd love to go for it. I saw who the hiring manager is and that you're connected to her. Can you make a personal introduction for me so that I can have a conversation?" That's different.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't pursue those opportunities, but don't spend all of your time in these online applications. I mean, my husband was going for a job. Again, he's a stay-at-home dad. He's going for a youth baseball coach job. And I say this to say, this job pays negative money, friends. And the online application process took 3 hours. And that's with me being a professional. And so that's not a good use of our time, right? And so we want to, if we see an opportunity, let's connect another way. And another chief sister actually reached out to me the other day and said, "Saw a job. Can you introduce me to the hiring manager?" I did apply, but I haven't heard back. She hadn't heard back from anyone. And so connected her with the hiring manager, who actually used to be a longtime client of ours, like a repeat client. So I knew her well, made the connection, and she said, "Hey, we're actually really far down the process. We're about to make an offer. So this job is no longer available, but you have an amazing background. I'd love to talk to you about something coming down the pike." That's the kind of conversation you want to be having. And that can stem from an online application, but that's not where we're spending our time. The act of applying is not where we want to spend our time.
Yeah. Also,
It's
when
not
it
the
comes to
MLB. Exactly,
applications,
Suzanne. That is exactly how I felt. It was an eighth grade baseball coach job that paid almost no money.
okay.
So
Well, back to where I was after overcoming the shock of the hours of the role. I have to bring safety here, and
yeah,
a lot of things that get posted online are not real, and
yeah,
they're used to get your information.
yes,
So
yes,
if you choose to do anything online, please double check, triple check, make sure that the job exists,
yes.
make sure that you go to the company site and that you start connecting with people. If you cannot get to a person, that's another red flag.
Yeah.
And you could be compromising your information and who knows how many other people along the way.
A lot of jobs are not real. They want your information. They want you in to be a database of job seekers that they're then either directly or selling to then sell you, resume services telling you what you have is terrible and you need to work with their company and all of these things. There's all sorts of reasons why they're doing it. It happens a lot. And even at the most senior levels, and they can look very real.
Yeah.
If you're ever not sure, reach out to us. I've had clients and friends reach out and say, "Hey, this job, but I'm not really sure. Does this seem fishy to you?" And we can dig in because it's always good for us to know what's going on in the market, and we see it all the time. So,
Yeah.
so think about those things before you apply to anything online anyway. And then I know we talked a little bit about some of these easy things you can do. Think about it as so to give you an idea, a really close friend of mine who's also a client worked really closely with Norma through her search process. Took forever. Marketers are the hardest to find jobs right now, and she's a senior marketing leader. She's really struggling. Had two offers get rescinded because that's just what we're seeing in this market right now. It was really awful. But she said a couple months ago, "I got tired of the job search. I just quit. I needed a break. I just stopped. It was really hurting my mental health. I can't do that anymore." And that's completely fair. So we talked a little bit about it, and she goes, "Yeah, I just quit. So now all I'm doing is keeping up with my network. I'm attending the some events. I'm, having live or virtual coffees with past bosses and people I know in the industry, but I stopped job searching." And I said, "You didn't stop job searching. You just started focusing on the things that actually open doors. Like you just stopped doing all the things that were causing you stress. You're still doing all the things you need to be doing." And that's really where the doors opened for her. And she ended up, a past boss reached out. He got a seat on a board and said, "Wow, this company needs, this person," and facilitated the whole hire for her. But it's when she stopped spinning her wheels in all of these activities that aren't fruitful that she was able to really focus on the things that actually move the needle.
That's just it, Deborah. It's the doing that gets people drained and not thinking about the future and not thinking about how it fits within what they want to do and not necessarily adapting their strategy as things change and the market changes and their own needs change, because we all do need a break. But
Right.
just let's not take the break too long, because it takes us longer to get restarted and get
It
involved in
does.
what we want to do.
And there's so many things you can do easily at night. Some of this research, some of these reach outs, connections on LinkedIn, things like that. We don't have to be sitting at our desk in a cone of silence. I say cone of silence for me at work because I have to, when my kids and husband are home, I have to just like block it all out. There's things you can do easily sitting on the couch at night, watching. My kids are really into Deal or No Deal right now. That's a different conversation, but it's taken over my life. Um, but that's something I can easily just, be sending connection requests out while my kids are screaming at the TV watching Deal. No. Um, but we can still be moving our job search forward in easy, approachable ways. And that way you're not feeling, I know you're feeling like every time you're not working on a job search, you're wasting time, but that's not always true.
But organize your time, get yourself a schedule, figure out when are the best hours or the best times for you to be able to do certain types of activities. And like in my case, the writing has to happen in the mornings, but the afternoons are easier to just do more mechanical tasks, like follow up on checking on what came through or getting organized for the next day. So it's each one of you will find your pace. Just keep at what works
Right.
and those
Keep out what's
relationships.
opening the right doors, focusing on the
Yes.
channels that make sense for you.
And I love it. Depending on the company, I will apply and network. Yes, Melissa.
Exactly. Doing both, saying, I've applied, and this woman that reached out to the role that then was closed had a thoughtful cover letter. She had attached all of this all together in her resume file. And so when she got that introduction to the hiring manager, she had expressed her interest in the company, why she was well aligned, all of these things, and it opened up further conversation, whereas it was just a dead end in the online application. So keep these things in mind. I know we're coming up to 10 minutes. I want to take some time for some Q&A. I see Suzanne has a really great question in here. As we transition into Q&A, two things for you. Number one, please pop in the chat what tip was meant for you today, what you feel like you're going to be able to take forward and elevate and make your job search more effective. Love to know what resonates with you all. And also, I know we mentioned at the top of the call, but if anyone joined us, we support job seekers through the life cycle of their search. But for anyone who moves forward with a package with us, we're offering the unique value proposition session for free at no extra cost, because it is such a valuable session to go through the process of understanding what your value is in the market, who you're directly talking to, and then really communicating that at a higher level. So I'm going to pop the link to meet with Carmen in the chat. Again, Carmen's on this call in the background. She's a real person, and she's the best first person to talk to about our work. And
I'm
and
seeing
then we will hop
all the
into some.
yeah, we will hop into some questions, but I can't help but read all the comments and be specific about networking, researching companies, asking who else should I know. Also, you want to offer what you can do for the person, even if it's sending a link to something or introducing them to something. That's another one that we like to suggest to people. Prepare and be intentional. Stephanie, that's great. Pamela
Yes,
is, who else should I know?
Crunchbase is a total game changer. You guys will nerd out. Um, but watch that tutorial. It's super short, and it'll be really helpful in all of your searches. Even if you're applying for roles right now or interviewing rather for roles right now, it'll help you. It pulls up all of their latest news, any press releases, any funding rounds, any leadership changes. All of these things are super helpful.
Saves you time from having to find it yourself.
Right. Exactly. It is so helpful. And then just to find, other companies, major competitors, things like that. That way you can prepare. And as I said, if anyone's going through a search or getting ready to start your search and you want to think about where your search may be breaking down, where the process may be holding you back, we do have the Executive Job Search Diagnostic. It's a free tool to take a look at. It takes 5 minutes to go through on your own and just kind of see what's working, what's not working, what can be working better for you. So, a couple of questions. Where it pulls up releases. Oh, that's in
Oh,
Crunchbase,
that's Crunchbase,
Jacqueline.
yes.
Yeah, so that's
Yes, yes,
all
yes.
within Crunchbase, and that tutorial, and I know Carmen popped a link to it in the chat earlier. We'll be able to, uh, we'll be able to, you'll be able to see that piece. So one of the questions earlier on in the chat, Suzanne asked, and it's really excellent. I want to touch on it, is how do you maintain a healthy ego throughout your
Mhm.
search? And this is such an important question because a healthy sense of ego and confidence is absolutely critical to landing a high level executive job because companies are hiring you for a lot of money to hopefully that's the goal, right? For a lot of money to drive big results. And they're not going to do that to take a chance on you. They're not going to do it to say, okay, well, we'll give her a chance and see how she does, right? They're going to do it because you have convinced them that you are the person that can drive results and that you're confident in your ability to do that. So, Norma, tell us a little bit about, especially because you're our psychology expert, how to keep a strong sense of ego throughout this process that can really be constant confidence hit after confidence hit.
Well, I always believe in taking care of yourself. We often get too involved in these processes. We want to do so much. Our sleep suffers, our eating suffers, our exercise gets postponed. You have to be healthy. You have to take care of your health first. That's a big part of having that healthy ego, because if you feel good physically, you tend to feel good emotionally. And also, I'd like to go back to the brag jar or the other post-its or the phrases and things that make your environment comfortable for you, that you feel that you like where you work, that it's your space where you
Right.
know that you can be at your best when you communicate either through camera or when you get out there and do that interview. I've even worn high heels to video calls just because I feel better, or my favorite lipstick, or any little details that make me feel comfortable, more comfortable with myself, my favorite piece of jewelry for something,
Mhm.
just to make sure that I come across as feeling, I mean, as self-confident and as somebody who can solve a problem and somebody who my clients can connect with, which is another thing. I need to build rapport really quickly. So I need to have my healthy sense of ego there when I'm there for them. Because this is
This
a
is so
long,
true.
yeah, this is a long stretch. I mean, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yes, it is a marathon. Pamela says she's worn high heels too. That's so funny. I wear
Pamela.
real pants to every. I wear real pants. I'm like Mr. Rogers. I change after work. I wear my work clothes and then I change after work, even though I'm still in my home,
Yeah.
because I feel like a grown adult doing real things when I have pants with a button and a zipper. Even though they're jeans, right now they're shorts, but they're not yoga pants, they're not pajamas, they're not sweatpants. I'm wearing real pants, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah. And if I have to get up in the middle of the meeting for whatever, you're not going to see something that you're not supposed to, because I'm at work. I'm here for you. And those are the little things that make life easier for you. Take breaks. Don't go
Mhm.
for those long stretches that then end up leaving you wiped out and not wanting to get near your computer forever.
Right.
Break it into manageable chunks, bite-sized pieces. And I am seeing Kristen responding to what we're talking about. Nice
And
jewelry, yes, Cleo.
and you're right. I mean, remembering that this is a long process. The most qualified leaders that have coming out of really excellent roles are leaving, are still taking 6, 8, 12 months to land a role. Know that it is not you. If you don't land a role right away, it's not because you suck and no one's going to hire you and you're going to die alone with your cats. That is not what's going to happen. You are going to land a role, but you have just know that it takes a long time right now. And that's just across the board. And so, keeping that in mind and knowing that it's not just you will help you get through the process. My friend that started a job, I had two friends actually and clients that started a job this Monday. And one, their job search was only 5 months. And I say only in terms of that's short for this market and where we're at right now. And he said, well, I was off for so long. I'm so glad to have a job. And I said, actually, you're ahead of schedule. And that's great. That's excellent, right? Know that it didn't take you too long. It took you shorter than industry average. And those mindset shifts can be helpful.
Something else you want to do is talk to people who are not involved in this. You need to talk about something else other than your job search. Otherwise, you're going to climb walls. Have another group. Get your high school friends together. Do something where you just talk about something else. It's a total, it's a break from whatever it is that you're doing. You get another energy, another type of energy from that group, from that audience, a hobby that you want to pursue, something different, just to freshen your brain and get you thinking about something else. And it will help you to recharge.
It will. We all have to have that time to recharge. It's so incredibly important. And even though you feel like you're not working, you're working. This is hard.
You're working.
And you need a break. And you need to be able to take those time out. And I know even with our own team, we're constantly telling each other, you need a break. You need to take some time out. Advocate for yourself, right? Because we're not always the best person to say, you need to take a break.
Yeah,
Carmen was forced to take a vacation last week, and I know we all have to do that for each other sometimes. So as we wrap up, I know we've got 2 minutes to go. I'd love to know, how are you all feeling? Was this helpful? Are you feeling better? Do you have a list of activities to suggest for a search? Kind of. I would suggest starting with the job search diagnostic, Mariana, and also checking out the YouTube channel. And if you want something really specific, reach out to us, and I'm sure we've got something. We do have a job search checklist that we can send. Invigorating, good. This is what we wanted. Inspired, wonderful.
Yes.
We don't want to share doom and gloom. We want all of you to land the roles that you want to land, to be in your ideal next role, making your ideal compensation, and that really starts with very focused search and a strategy to work smarter and not harder, and not spin your wheels in these activities that we just know don't return for people at your level. Thank you so much. Reach out to both Norma and I on LinkedIn. We share a ton of content, and reach out to Carmen to talk about working with us.
Yes. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for all those wonderful comments. It's great to see that we've been able to reach you, connect with you, and that our message has made sense.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.